Man, I don't even want to talk. I played myself this morning, y'all. I rickety wrecked myself. I didn't check myself. You know, I started this morning off playing Marimba Ani, a short excerpt from an interview, Marimba Ani, talking about how do we awaken African people? What are the prospects for awakening our people to the task at hand? And then I followed that up with some Bob Marley. I played myself. How can I follow that? I mean, I want to tune out. I don't want to hear no more. I want to go back to splicing in some Marimba Ani insights with some Bob Marley tracks. I should go back to that. Y'all don't want to hear me. I don't want to hear myself. I should have chickadee checked myself. I should have played Marimba Ani and Bob Marley after I finished Jaw Bowling, not before. But what can I say? Again, here's another thing. You know, if you watch me on live Facebook or YouTube, you don't get the entire show because of their copyright, because you know they just be hating on me, man. As my older brother would always say, people just be hating on me, man. So I can't, because they always trying to flag my show. Facebook stay suspending a brother, you know. Thanks to Oshun, Obatala, and Baby Jesus, I haven't been, you know, it's been a few months since my account has been flagged for hate. You know, I am a bastion of hate. And so hate speech, it's been quite some time since they didn't caught me out there for hate speech. So, you know, but they stay on me, man. I get flagged. I get all these little messages from Mark Zuckerberg hounding me, you know, trying to keep the airways pure. And the main issue is the internet and the mass surveillance society is not really, believe it or not, wasn't really set up to watch revolutionaries in the United States. The oppressors in the United States have pretty much quelled left-wing rebellion, and they don't care about right-wing violence. That's something we kind of have to get over ourselves here in the United States of America. That's something we have to get over. I know a lot of pro-black people we like to play cowboys and Indians. We like to play hide and seek with the feds. We like to pretend like we're on some clandestine mission to bring, but the left wing, the black radical, the black revolutionary, the Pan-African movement has been so castrated, so hollowed out, that we got people like Umar who can call themselves the Prince of Pan-Africanism, and there's no real challenge to it. We've lost so many great scholars, so many great activists. They feel that as far back as the 70s, that it's pretty much been relegated to the fringes of not American society. Black consciousness, black radicalism has not just been pushed to the fringes of American society, but it's been pushed to the fringes of the black community. And it's been replaced by something. But that I'm going to get into that, because today's topic is rats, reactionaries, and revolution. So I'm going to talk more about that. But I don't want to get into that right now, because so much other stuff to get down with. But I'm definitely going to put a pin in that and return to it. But before I get into that, I want to talk about a few other things, and then we'll go into our topic. But I'm going to avoid any rabbit holes. Send prayers up. Help Brother Diallo keep me strong, keep up my strength, so I can avoid rabbit holes. I'm not making no promises. I'm just telling you my intentions, inshallah. I better stop mockingly using this religious terminology for somebody to put roots on me or something. But anyway, we've been having the plate debate for many years now. We've been having the plate debate. And if you're unfamiliar with the plate debate, then you need to go ahead and update your black card. You got to know what's going on, what's in the minds of the black masses. Even if you don't dwell amongst the black masses, even if you have elevated financially, elevated spiritually, elevated intellectually beyond the hordes of the black masses in the community, you still got to keep a hand on the pulse of the people if you intend to change the reality, change the mind state of the people. Especially with the youth. You know, you just heard Marimba Ani if you tuned in at the start of the show. But anyway, the plate debate has been, which I've never been engaged in the plate debate. I've always been observing the plate debate from a distance. But thanks to the advent of social media, I'm able to observe a lot of dumbass debates that I don't have to partake in. I can follow the line, the arguments, the debates, the pages, the memes, but I don't have to sully my hands and get into that mess, because to me it's a mess. But anyway, there's been an ongoing debate about, in a public setting or a group setting or a family setting, when it's time to eat, who makes the plate? If a woman arrives at a dinner with her family, with her husband, her nuclear family, her husband, her offspring, but also her extended family is there, her grandfather, uncles, elders of her family, and it's time to eat, who does the woman make the plate for first? Does she make the plate for her husband? Does she feed the children? Does she feed her uncle, daddy, or does she feed her homie, her homegirl, or does she make her own plate and let them make their own plate? They ain't crippled, girl. They can do that themselves. That's been the plate debate. Now I know some of you sophisticated folks are like, yeah, whatevs, don't mean nothing, ain't nothing about nothing. But apparently in the hood, in the streets, this is a serious issue. A serious, serious issue. Now in the African tradition, and well, in Africa's pretty vast, but in some African tradition, the thought was that the elders eat first, and the youth serve the elders. And it was also a thought that the elders have the wisdom and the discipline that they won't gobble up all the good stuff. The elders are always thinking about the future generations. It's no longer about them. The elders, and to be an elder in African tradition means that you've transcended, you've gone through certain cultivations, certain rites of passage. You've earned certain titles and positions that you can be trusted to hold power and to guide the people up and coming, and that you don't act in your own interest. Now that's been warped, because you look at Trump. Trump is rapidly trying to destroy the world, even though he has grandchildren and a young Baron Trump. And it's like white people don't even preserve the world for their own offspring, let alone for the people far off descendants. But in the African and in the seventh generation philosophy of many of the Iroquois Confederacy. But anyway, so the African tradition was that the elders eat first. And you know that you allow the elders eat first as they're making their place. Their main focus is, well, the baby's got to eat. So you feed the elders, and then the children eat, the babies eat, because they don't eat a lot, and it's all about nurturing. And then that's when the adults, the people who made the food, the people who set up, the people who dug the barbecue pit, the people who did the work, ate last. And it's about priorities and reverence. You revere the elders, you prioritize the youth, and then the workers, the people, we're willing to show that we're ready to make sacrifices. We're ready to develop ourselves and work ourselves up to elder status, to demonstrate to the community that we are the protectors, the providers, and so on and so forth. But here in America, we look at white folks and say, well, of course, the patriarch should eat first. He paid for the food. He brought home the bacon. He works hard every day. Some Archie Bunker type nonsense. So the one side of the plate debate is you feed the strongest man first. Some barbaric stuff. I'm the man. I'm the strongest. I can whoop everybody's ass. I go out here and work the lines, work the rails. Most of men, we work in cubicles, but, we like to still imagine. And hold that thought too about, going from working the rail yards to working in cubicles. For us testosterone-laced alpha males, that's a serious element of our today's main discussion. But I digress. Let's get back to the point. Anyway, so the popular side is, for us, cisgender, heterosexual, alpha, manly man, is that you feed me first. You make me the first plate. You make me the biggest plate. And you, my woman, you go woo woo woo. And I've watched this debate from afar. I never jumped in. I thought it was a stupid debate. And then, who eats next? Don't matter. I'm eating. I'm satisfied. To hell with everybody else. Like, that's not a very noble position, but might makes right. And then there's another side of the debate that says the man should make his own plate. Everybody that's capable should make their own plate. And so this debate has been going on literally for years. Who, you at the picnic, who do you make a plate for? And even after your woman has subserviently made you a plate, if it's not your spouse, your girl, your boo, then your nieces or whatever other, women that are present and available, make the man plate. Men eat first. So there was another debate, if you're capable. That's been the debate, whether or not a woman is obligated to make her man a plate. And some women come out and say, I'm more than happy to serve my king. Other women is like, fool, shoot, if I cooked first, I eat first. That whole feeding the children first or feeding the elders first, that was never really a prominent part. But the reason I'm talking about the plate debate is that stuff done got realer than real. Just a few days ago, a man by the name of Calvin Watkins killed 2 people because his wife made a plate for his stepbrother. His stepbrother and the whole family was there. She made a plate for his stepbrother. And the man lost it. Like, how dare you make this next man a plate? I'm your man. You make my plate. How you bringing this dude a plate and I ain't ate yet? That's the thing. And so he pulls out so everyone's lose. It was a Super Bowl party. Whenever the Super Bowl, it was a Super Bowl party. So it wasn't even no gourmet food. It was hot wings and Doritos. Or whatever. I've never been to a Super Bowl party since in my adult life. I've been around some, but I've never been like invited to one. And I've never sat through a damn Super Bowl or any other grown-ass millionaires chasing balls. That's just not my thing. But I digress. He admonishes his spouse for making the next man a plate. So everyone says this is whack. This dude is bugging. He's cursing everybody's out. He's threatening people. So everyone left, except for the dude who got his plate. He didn't leave. And another woman. I'm not sure what her relationship was. So lo and behold, the woman goes home, leaves the Super Bowl party, the wife who violated and made the plate, and she gets a call from the man he made a plate for. And she said that she could hear her husband in the background yelling and screaming. And then she hears several shots. He shoots the man several times, kills him on the scene, shoots the woman several times. She survives, and she's taken to the hospital, but she's essentially in a vegetative state with no brain activity over the plate debate. This is how absurd we can get. And yes, we'll talk about the toxic masculinity. But, this man didn't give birth to himself, nurture himself, raise himself. He didn't arm himself. He got the gun from somebody. He didn't manufacture the weapon. This dude, this Calvin Wilkins, is a product, a byproduct of a very deliberate, conscious process. So I'm just saying that a lot of these debates out here where we're sometimes, like I said, there's been a lot of funny memes and stuff. Some people take stuff to the whole nother level. And I think this is less about a plate and more about his fragile ego. And I see so many of these ongoing debates and discussion. Stupid, frivolous debates and discussion where we're ready to shed blood and spend the rest of our lives in the belly of the beast in greater confinement. Dr. Nellie Fuller said this whole society is a cage for African people, for black people. So jail is just greater confinement. But even if you're not tried, convicted, and incarcerated, you're still in a ongoing confinement. But I digress. It's a tragic story, but the next time, as the barbecue season starts, and y'all start the debate on who's invited to the cookout and who gets what plate first, think about where this stuff goes. And I think, again, if we revisit, if we employ Sankofa, we revisit some of our African traditions, we could avoid some of this madness. Some other airborne feces flying around the internet is Tariq Nasheed. And if you don't know who Tariq Nasheed is, he's a videographer, a pimp, a comedian, a producer, an R&B singer, and one of the last men on earth that wears a pencil-thin goatee. So he's truly a pioneer. But he has recently adopted the DOS, Descendant of Slaves ideology. And the reason Tariq adopted it is because one thing about Tariq is he's very transparent about his fundamental intentions. His whole purpose in life is to make that money. And he could go from pimping hoes to pimping African history as long as them dollars, where them dollars at. And whenever he starts to confront other black people on ideological debates, he always pretty much says, well, I got money, I got status, I got cars, I got houses. Therefore, how could I be wrong? As opposed to might makes right, money makes right. So if I am achieving and I have a level of material comfort in this society, then of course, so it's more of a Calvinistic, as Afrocentric as a lot of these men are, and one of his rivals, Dr. Umar, you'll find at the root of many of their African centric front, their African centered or pan-African or pro-black or conscious candy coding. If you take away that coding, you'll find Judeo-Christian Western analysis and ideology. So he's more of an African-centered Calvinist, which is nothing, which shouldn't be a thing, which isn't a thing, but it is everywhere, but it should be nowhere because it's self-counseling. But that's not even my issues with him. Being a pimp, a Mac, and instructing other men how to Mac, how to play, how to hustle women, that's over there. That's not over here. That's not my issue. But he recently adopted the American DOS because the DOS, one of the cornerstones, and what makes the DOS attractive to a lot of hustlers, grinders, and shysters is the fact that there's an economic component. There's essentially a component that says there's a pool of money, there's a pool of resources, there's a pool of opportunity, and there's a conduit of access that will be reserved for a small, very specifically identified faction of black people. So American DOS seeks to open up a crevice, a crack within the pool of resources, the stolen, ill-gotten resources of the larger white capitalist system, and reserve it, and saying that as a result of the suffering of our ancestors, and as a result of what a very specific group of our ancestors went through, we are entitled to a specific amount of access, opportunity, and resources just for us. And it's a money hustle. It's not about liberation. It's about paying us for services rendered. So it's not really a triumphant or liberationist ideology. It's more of it's an economic scheme. It's really a pyramid scheme. At the top of the pyramid, there are the people who suffered, and then they cascade down. Like, so if you were under Caribbean, Latin American slavery, and then there were some Africans who were enslaved by the First Nations. So not all African people who were in bondage, even in the defined borders of the United States, were slaves under the United States. They were slaves under the sovereign nations. So that's even another division I haven't seen the American DOS identify. But anyway, Tariq Nasheed, who has a philosophy that you don't let hoes talk out their face to you, and he's lived by this code. He has exercised this code. And there are many instances of Tariq Nasheed checking hoes and bitches, keeping hoes and bitches in their place when they speak out of turn. But one particular hoe bitch engages Tariq by the name of Ann Coulter. Again, a notorious racist, an overt notorious white nationalist racist, who has promoted ideas of black men being, she's like of the tradition of the woman that falsely accused Emmett Till. She thinks that black men are inherently criminal, even though she's a Trump supporter, and Trump is a mob boss, is a criminal. But anyway, you know how these white people do. She's one of them white women that call the police. She approaches Tariq on Twitter in a public forum and says, I like the DOS. And if I was a white racist, if I was a neo-Nazi, I'd love the DOS for years, for decades, for centuries, for generations. White people have been trying to convince black people that our history starts in slavery, that we sat in darkness, and one of the greatest things that happened to black people in the United States was us to be brought in bondage to the New World and to be Christianized and integrated into the white society. That is the aspect of our identity that matters the most. Not our eons of history prior to there ever being a such thing as America, being a such. We predate America, we predate Europe, we predate the concept of whiteness and European culture and capitalism. We predate the dollar. But they said it's harder to enslave, control, and isolate a people who have historical and global connections. So, as Wise Intelligence said, even in school they telling me my history starts in slavery. And for decades, black people did not enter the discussion in American history, American culture, American consciousness from any time but slavery. We had no history, no relevant history prior to slavery. And that wasn't just about hurting our feelings or our egos. That was an economic, political, and military strategy that Europeans employed to sustain us in oppression. Black people start from slavery. And if you start your history in slavery and you look at 2019, you can't say that you haven't made progress, black man. You're no longer in shackles. You're no longer in bondage. So we would think, wow, black people are progressing. But if you take our history back to pre-history, and white people call any time before they entered history prehistoric. Because again, that's another psychopathic ego thing they got going on. But if you take our history back prior to the time of African antiquity, you could not look at black people in 2019 and say, well, we're up from slavery, as one of the beloved heroes of the DOS movement said, Booker T. Washington, that old Uncle Tom. He said, we're up from slavery. But I can't even compare them to Booker T because they're not even on his level. They got Booker T looking like WB, and they got WB looking like Marcus Garvey. That's how regressive they are. But I digress. You would not see that, well, we haven't elevated. We're still in a deep state of regression if we look at the totality of African history and African reality and African lineage. We're still in a regressive state and still in require an aggressive level of struggle. And our destiny has not been fulfilled, and the cycle has not been fully enacted until we make a return to Africa. But if you just say slavery, damn, I got the shackles off my neck. I can rest. But the fight just begun after chattel slavery. The fight didn't end after chattel slavery, and the fight won't end after we get reparations and we're able to get private jets and more fur hats and go pay for a pencil line goatee, whatever he wants to do with his reparations money. But anyway, if I was a white racist, I would love the DOS movement. And now we're finding that the white racists do love. And Coulter's on record saying, I like the DOS movement. But I think it should be the DOAS movement. So she's coming to Tariq to tell this black man, look, boy, I think that's real cute how you do that, boy. But, boy, I want you to do it a little better, to tweak it a little bit more, boy. You should be the D. She wants us to be the DOAS. It's not enough to be African or American descendants of slaves. You have to be descendant of American slaves. So, and she says in her tweet that said not Haitian slaves or Moroccan slaves, etc. She's like, I don't want my niggers stirred up with the Haitian niggers, the Moroccan niggers, the what do you call them other niggers? I don't want y'all, you are niggas. We own y'all. Y'all descendants of American slaves. You're our property. And we don't want you messing with them Haitians, them Dominicans, them Jamaicans, them all the more than 1 billion African descendants of slaves in Mexico, Guyana, Brazil. So you niggas isolate yourselves. I love this isolationist ideology that makes you more vulnerable, that turns you from a global majority to a national minority. I love it. I love it. But restrict yourself even more. But let me read the quote directly without all my ad-libbing. She said, Ann Coulter, Tariq, I like hashtag ADOS, but I think it should be hashtag DOAS, descendants of American slaves, not Haitian slaves, not Moroccan slaves, etc. And you know the pimp daddy, who in his document says you never let a hoe check you, you keep a bitch in her place. The black man that is on record, the black man who is on record, there's a videotape that somebody just posted it to my page where Tariq fires his female co-host. And the reason he fired his female co-host because he said, you don't be asking me questions. I can't use the language. I can't play the tape because it's so much vulgarity because Tariq don't play that because he's a pimp. Got to be a pimp to wear a penciled in goatee. But I digress. How do you think he responded? Now, this is a black man who said that during slavery, because Tariq ain't even descendants of slave. He needs to, if I was to make a suggestion, but I'm sure if I made the suggestion, I don't know if he'd deal with me like he dealt with Ann Coulter. But he should be MDOS, male descendants of slaves. Because Tariq is on record, this man who y'all bought history tapes from, who y'all went and bought and paid to tell y'all something about history, said that black women had it easier in slavery than black men because the black woman could sell her vagina, could use her vagina in order to secure favors from the master, where the black man didn't have that option because the black man didn't have vagina. So he thinks even chattel slavery was a pimp hustle, where women could hustle their vaginas in order to carry favor with the slave master. This is a grown adult black man who said this. So he even thinks black men had it harder under slavery. That these hoes was slanging that thing, even during slavery, to get extra I don't know what. And he's still a relevant voice in the black community. He can still walk up and down these streets. I don't understand y'all. But everything I'm saying, fortunately, thanks to the worldwide internet, it's all on record. And thanks to Tariq Nasheed's enormous ego, if you call him and contact him and ask him, he'll tell you again. You ask him again, he'll tell you the same. Putin is his name. But what did Tariq the pimp, the Tariq who's cursed out numerous women publicly, then called numerous black women hoes, bitches, tricks, then disrespected the suffering and struggling of our female ancestors who were in chattel bondage? What did he say to this white racist woman when she stepped to him trying to tell him about his business? He said, thank you for the suggestion. By the way, Ann, since you are giving suggestions, what, all caps, tangible compensatory resources would you suggest get allocated to black descendants of American slaves? Woo, that was cold, right? Ain't that like how the strong hit that gorilla pimping, right? Let me read that again. What this gorilla pimp said to this racist white woman getting in his business after he's on famously shown to say, I don't want nobody questioning me. I don't let no women come to me and tell me nothing. He said, thank you for the suggestion, period. By the way, Ann, since you are giving suggestions, what tangible compensatory resources would you suggest get allocated to black descendants of American slavery? And you see, black descendants of American slavery. He obeyed her suggestion. She said, don't call yourself American or African descendants of slaves. Call yourself descendants of American slaves. So he said, allocated to black descendants of American slaves. So not only did, and then some people tried to defend this dude, saying, oh, he was being sarcastic. Or some people tried to defend him by saying, well, he was trying to turn the conversation towards something tangible. He was trying to turn the conversation from the name to what. But here's the thing about that. Whether he was trying to turn the conversation into something more tangible and constructive, or whether he was being sarcastic, I've never seen him deal with a black woman he was in conflict in this nature. I've never seen him use tact. I've never seen him use snark. I've never seen him use humor. I've never seen him try to say, well, this black woman, she tripping. This black hoe is tripping, talking to a pimp the wrong kind of way. So let me try to turn the conversation back on her. Let me try. It's always been curse out, demean, disrespect for every black woman. I've seen him, and he's had many public online conflicts with black women. So, even if that's, how come this level of tact, this sophisticated, tactful way you came and showed and played and culture, why couldn't that be applied to the dozens of black women you called bitches and hoes and said that they slanging their thing in order to get what they want? Where's the tact reserved for black women? Because Lord knows, I've had more than my share of ideological head bumping with black women over the years. Black feminists, I've debated with black women over everything from feminism to veganism. Black women that want to, eat bone marrow. Black women that want equality with white men. But I've never come out my face at a black woman, even if I have the most fundamental foundational disagreements with a black woman, the way Tariq comes out his face at black women. In fact, the way I respond to black women when we bump heads ideologically, it's more like how he did with Ann Coulter. But I guarantee you, let Ann Coulter find her ugly ass way to my Twitter feed. Let her come and give me some suggestions. I might have to get my Tariq on if she stepped to me. Lord, have his mercy. Don't come to me with that. Now, the way I deal with sisters and black people and even white people that come with a level of respect is totally different than how I come with a white person come arrogantly tell me how to shape my stuff. So, this is where this is what DOS is all about. And here's another tragic aspect of this stupid thing. Who is Ann Coulter? Is she a policymaker, politician, elected official? Is she a CEO? Is she anybody in a position to influence public policy or economic policies or even secure or advocate for anything for black people? No. She's literally a pundit. She was some white wealthy housewife who was bored and decided to just get on, start talking trash about immigrants and black people, and then start dissing women. This hoe ain't loyal. She ain't even loyal to other women. She get out here and disparage rape victims, women who are victims of assault. She's disrespectful. She ain't even loyal to other white women. Even other white women tell Ann Coulter to go eat a phallus. Other white women call her the scum of the earth. Tariq has given her more respect and more consideration than other white women would give this white woman. But y'all want to tell me, oh, he's just being. Let me tell you something. I've been done with Tariq. When he made that comment about black women had it easier in slavery because they had vaginas, which was a form of currency under slavery. When he made that comment, I was through with this dude. And y'all you seen him? I ain't seen none of that Hidden Colors stuff. Not one. And I think every black man who appeared in Hidden Colors should renounce it. And renounce him. And I don't say that because a lot of times dudes do they. There's a lot of people I know that get out here and do dumb stuff that I don't agree with. I got a lot of friends that do dumb stuff I don't agree with. Even now, you go to King Dita. He's a friend of mine. He likes to go out in the snow and do martial arts and train in the cold weather. I don't agree with that. But just because you do something I don't agree with, don't mean I'm not going to denounce him. But by the time anybody you've been publicly associated with, professionally or even personally, I've cut dudes off that I've known since I was a child. Over certain things. Certain things you just don't do. You got to have a line. You got, as Brother Woza said, if you have no code, you have no culture. But I can't tell you who. I know Dr. Umar was on Hidden Colors because Dr. Umar and Tariq kept saying, I made you. No, I made you. Couple of idiots, man. I made you. If it wasn't for me, you'd be nothing. And they were both claiming one made the other. I'm like, why don't y'all just kiss and get over with it? That was the most homoerotic, ultra macho conflict I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, I've never seen any of the Hidden Color tapes. Even when y'all was sending me links, I didn't watch it. I can't get down like that. You know, I ain't no Dr. King. I ain't no Rosa Parks. I ain't no SCLC. I ain't no Snick. But I know, a lot of my boycotts. I got all kind of personal boycotts because I can't really rally y'all. I'm not the big papa prince of Pan-Africanism. I'm not the pimp of Pan-Africanism like Tariq. I'm not ADOS. I ain't got no hustles and grinds. All I got is analysis. And somebody just told me I was a sucker because I give it away for free. I don't give it away for free. I make it available to anyone who wants it, but I do ask that people do support my efforts. So I don't know. I guess that is giving away for free if I allow people to voluntarily. Because people like Tariq Nasheed and Ansar Kwesi, they up here splitting people's forehead open over their content. They up here beating up black people and calling the police for copyright violation over their content. I ain't about to do that. You bootleg my stuff, believe you me. I'm not gonna put my hands on you, and I will not alert the authorities to your activities. You know. I don't know if I should be saying that on the air, but that's just not how I do. That's not my code. That's not my value system. I'm not in it for the money, but it's nice to have compensation to continue what I'm in, to be in it. I'm trying to stay in it. But I digress. I continue to digress. People like Tariq Nasheed, but there's so many people that have standing. From Farrakhan, Jesse, I guess, man, I don't know what people can do to get, what do they have to do? Does it got to go as far as R. Kelly before the community can write somebody off? You got to be peeing on a child in the face? But he ain't canceled. What you got to do to write somebody off, man? To send somebody into exile? I ain't even say put your hands on people. I ain't saying, do nothing but just exile, just shun, just turn your back and go the other direction. At what point? If we don't have a code, if we don't have standards, if black solidarity does not come with terms and conditions, we make more of a commitment to our telephone contracts than we do for our liberation struggle, for our culture, our community, the fundamental dignity of our race. Yeah. Sickening. I wish I could say some other things. I wish I could talk some Tariq Nasheed language. Maybe when we go to the Bro Diallo, the Q&A session, I can use the language I want to use. But now this is Q4 Radio, TuneIn app, iTunes Radio, and AC AM 1680, which means we are overseen by the FCC code. And a lot of y'all know snitch gangsters that be getting me kicked off of Facebook. Y'all gonna turn around and get me kicked off the airways too. Or get some fines that I can't afford to pay. So I gotta keep the language within the civil discourse parameters. But I am thoroughly disgusted, not with Tariq. There's pimps and scumbags and hustlers and shysters everywhere. I'm disgusted by the masses of people that give these people a stage. And I ain't saying you don't even have to rip down the stage. Just turn and walk away. That's one thing I do wish we could adopt from the black feminists. Canceling people. Throw the whole Negro away. What incentive do we give to the black men and women who stay true to the game? Who represent us with dignity? Who hold to some level of principles? What incentive do we give them when we give sellouts the same level of consideration that we give to scumbags? Why not be a scumbag? Why not profitize and monetize the struggle? Why not exploit my people? Why be loyal to a people who don't demand loyalty, that don't reward loyalty and don't sanction disloyalty? I could be a black man to say, I hate black women. I could be a black man that says, I don't want no dark-skinned kids, that I hate my color, I hate my race, I hate my lineage, and to the point where I'm going to do what I can to eliminate my own phenotype. I'm going to go out and try to have babies with a woman that is distant from my own phenotype because I don't want to reproduce myself because I hate myself so much. And I get as much love and respect from the community when the police shoot me down as Sandra Bland, as other black people who are loyal to their people, who have not denounced blackness or their African lineage. What's the point? Why be down with the people that don't reward loyalty and don't punish disloyalty? We have to start to reward loyalty and punish disloyalty. If we don't have a code, if we don't have terms and conditions, if there is no consequences for saying that black women were able to pimp pussy during slavery, if there's no consequence for a black man who claims to be a history teacher, then what's the point of any of it? There's no code. Even our wretched oppressors, in their constitution, they have a concept of treason. Even the worst, even the scumbag Nazis say, yo, we need some loyalty oaths. Even Trump, the reason why Trump is suffering so much and has so much disruption is because he doesn't inspire loyalty. Everybody from Trump team is flipping on him. So even if you're a billionaire white man that has everything in the world set up for you, if you cannot inspire loyalty, and why doesn't Trump inspire loyalty? Because he gives none. And we got drug dealer, hustler, gang banging, exploit, sex trafficking, gang bangs, and gangsters that have more stability than black revolutionary organizations because there is certain, even though it's a corrupt system, there is a reward for loyalty, and there are sanctions for disloyalty. But let me leave this Tariq thing alone before it eats up all my time. Shame on you. And let me tell you something. You come to me with that? Yesterday, I blocked 3 people on social media. I'm done. I'm done. You can come disagree with me all day. You can come and challenge some of my most fundamental ideas, but you better come correct. I'm done tolerating, you intellectual diarrhea people that just spew stuff out of your head that you haven't even sussed out, that you haven't even evaluated. So no, I'm not tolerating. I'm done. So come on with your DOS. Self-expose. Expose yourself. DOS, pro Tariq, pro Umar. Come on. I invite you to, because I got some people to block when I get home. It's going to be block party. It's gonna be block Central Station. But let me move the hell on. I now my stomach is turning. See, I started off feeling good. I played some excerpts from a Marimba Ani interview. I played me a little Bob Marley. I was in a good mood, and I ruined my own mood. I played myself yet again. I'm just taking L's all morning. But let's just go on. Yeah, let me talk about something that's a little less vomit-inducing. I got all kinds of stuff. State of the Union, global warming, nuclear test ban treaty. Oh, let's talk about 21 Savage. I think this is a good segue. Is somebody calling? I'm sorry, caller. I missed your call. Please call again. I wasn't looking at the screen, and because I'm live on the air, it can't alert me. So I didn't see it. Caller, please call back, and I'll get you on the air for the Bro Diallo show. I'm sorry I missed your call. I wasn't trying to screen you out. Oh, here you go. Thank you, caller. You're live on the Bro Diallo show. State your name or alias and where you're calling from.
Good morning, Diallo. It's ML from St. Louis.
Hey, what's up? What's up, sister?
I just had to add one thing here before you leave the whole Mr. Nasheed situation alone. And I have watched his videos. I didn't buy them, but I have watched them, and I have bootleg copies. But I don't know, a year or so ago, what turned me on him, I don't know if you know this, he was giving these quote-unquote macro lessons to men, to black men, and he has a wife who is of mixed heritage. Her mother is white and her father is black. And he told the men, when you get a mixed woman, get one who has a white mother, because girls and women learn from their mother. So if you get a mixed woman from a white mother, she will know how to be submissive to her man. She will have the traits and the characteristics of that white mother who is submissive and subservient to her man. So, get you a mixed woman with a white mother. And after that, I was done. And to be honest with you, I have no understanding of how black women listen to him once he said that. So, this culture thing, he didn't clown her because, that's basically what he wants. And actually, I didn't hear it, but somebody said at one point, he talked about having a crush on Hulk Hogan's daughter. I don't remember the child name. But he had a crush on Hulk Hogan's daughter, and he said he would raise the European flag in bed. I didn't hear it myself, but from what I heard, he's saying he would, have sex with her, and he had crush on her. So that's what he likes. So I mean, like I said, I don't understand why black women we clown men who other black men, mainly the poor ones who ain't got the money and status that Tariq has. We clown them when they get a white woman, or other famous black men. We'll throw them away because they got a white girl on their arm. But him, he can spew this nonsense, and it's okay. So I just wanted to add that in there because that's when I was like, okay, I'm good. Let me go.
I appreciate because I didn't know about the mixed woman thing. Because I messed up and got a woman with a black mother and black father. I didn't know that.
His Mac lesson was like some tutorial. You know what I'm saying? It was a whole situation. He tutored black men, and that's what he said. Get you a big girl with a white mom.
Yeah, I know. Well, Tariq is a classic opportunist. I mean, he'll sell you pimp. I mean, he's like one of them cats. You ever see the show Martin where Hustle Man came in? He had wedding engagement rings. He had toothbrushes. He had knives. He had fingernail clippers. Under his trench coat. He's one of them type of cats. So if there's money to be made in this Afrocentric stuff, he'll go there. If it's money to be made in rejecting Africa and be in ADOS, he'll go there. And don't be surprised, the 2020 election, he might come out as a conservative Republican and try to take, what's that dude's name? Clarence Thomas and Condoleezza Rice. He might get in with them. He goes to where the money is. He's led around by the nose. He talks about pimps and hoes, but he's really a hoe for white money and white material status.
And he said and one reason I haven't, really too much had an issue with him in the past, because he's always said I'm a pimp. He sings, he makes music or whatever. He's always said I'm a pimp. I'm not I'm not a role model. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm a pimp. I'm hustling. This is what I do. He's always said that. So I've never given him any status as far as like any real respect. But once he said this whole thing about get you a white black girl with a white mom, I'm like, okay, let me get away from you because no, that's not good. And so I don't get why black women still catering to him and listening to him and supporting him. I have no idea, but. That's all I wanted to add to the conversation. You keep going and you have a great day, and I'm listening.
I appreciate you, sister.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. I didn't know about that. I knew about the Brooke Hogan. Kwabena. I ain't gonna pretend like I knew her name. I just saw Kwabena said that her name was Brooke Hogan. But I knew about Hulk Hogan's daughter. That's who she will always be. She ain't done nothing but be Hulk Hogan's daughter, as far as I know. But she was brothers was posted. Oh, she thick. She's a. I hate that I know this, but I'm not going to deny that I know it. It's this thing called a pog, fat ass white girl. That I hate that I know things, brother. I ain't always been walking hand in hand with the Lord. I have not always been. I was once of the world. So yes, she was a pog. And a lot of brothers was hemming and hawing over her. And if you go even to Mustafa Whitey Killer's social media page and you scroll too far down, you'll find that he probably got images of her in a bikini on his feed too. Brothers was into that. But I didn't know about this raise the flag of Europe and get you a mixed race woman with a white mother as opposed to a white father. I didn't even know that. I mean, y'all wildin'. Like I said, I don't know what it takes for us to cancel people. Like I said, there's one thing I wish we would adopt from the black feminist side. Canceling people. We need terms and conditions. But y'all, I mean, I think that the DOS is going to give a lot of these scumbags who had started to fall out of favor because reasons, it's going to give a lot of them the rebirth. And then Yvette Carnell created a fake account. I know it's her. She cancels me on she blocks me on social media and then she unblocks me to him and her and then she reblocks me. But Yvette created a fake account of a black male by the name of Randall Rowland. I posted it on my page. And it's just a profile picture. And then they also said Randall Rowland lives in the city of Chicago, Illinois. So she wants me to believe that she lives in my city. And started as a man calling me, as some sisters pointed out, that this Randall Rowland was calling me dusty, ashy, and all that. And some sisters said that sounds like terminology that women use against men, and was defending Tariq, saying that Tariq did more for black folks. I missed another call. Sorry. This system pops up after the call is dropped. It doesn't pop up in front of me. And I got three computers. Oh, you're calling back. Caller, state your name or alias and where you're calling from. You're live on the Bro Diallo show.
Hey Diallo, this is Ashley calling from New York. So you were talking about Yvette Carnell. I have to admit, I used to follow her. I saw her on the Black Agenda Report. I guess she's split with them now. But I remember right before she started doing this DOS thing, the thing that made me leave her is she did this video where she was reacting to somebody supposedly from Africa saying that she wasn't a real African and that we were the descendants of, I don't know, slave masters who raped their slaves and such and such and such and such, right before she did that whole thing. And I was thinking, so if they're gonna hold, every African to this line that they've drawn, like what has Yvette Carnell done to prove that, say, I don't know, that she doesn't have somebody in her family who served in the American military, somebody in her family who owned slaves, because black people in the United States have owned slaves. If she's creating these lines.
Well, the ADOS is not a rationalist movement. It's not a movement that's really based in history. It's not a movement that's based in any type of rationality. It's a movement based in a belief system. It's a fantasy movement, just like the Tea Party, where they believe we built America. This is our home. They didn't build America, and it's not their original home. So these movements, actually, there's an author by the name of Chris Hedges who talks about how when people start to degenerate to a certain point, when fantasy becomes, there's no viable ADOS. It's not a viable movement. That's why Europeans for generations have been trying to lock us into this identity that our history and our reality is rooted in slavery, not in Africa. So she doesn't really need to prove anything, because also if you look at the evolution of Yvette personally and the evolution of the ADOS, it's constantly morphing and changing. Now that it used to be just DOS, now it's then it became ADOS, and now it's DOAS at the suggestion of Ann Coulter. So don't rack yourself trying to say, well, this is, try to make sense of it. It's not even worth that level of examination, to be honest.
Oh, speaking of Ann Coulter, like I'm Haitian, and I can trace in my own family. My grandmother would tell me stories of there were members of my family who, after the revolution, who went to the Americas. There were members of my family who came to Haiti, like during the revolution, to fight on the side of Haitians. Like, how would she draw a line around us? And I have people in my family who are members of, like, say, I don't claim them, the degenerate bourgeoisie in Haiti, and I have people in my family who, are working class and below that. So how, like, I keep trying to follow it, but I don't understand how she draws those lines.
Well, also if you look at Nova Scotia and the African Baptist movement in Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotians are slaves who fought on the side of the British against the American separatists, or the red coats versus the blue coats. They fought on the side, and so the British took these African descendants of slaves, American descendants of slaves, and took them to Nova Scotia to protect them from the reprisals. Also, if you look at during the slave trade, slaves would be traded, whole lots of slaves would be taken from Caribbean plantations and brought to southern U.S. plantation, and then taken from southern U.S. plantations back down to the Panama and to Central America, and then they would recruit whole batches of slaves to take them back to Africa to put down African rebellions. They would literally train up slave regiments in the New World, in the Americas, to go put down colonial rebellions in Africa. And then you have the whole Liberian back to Africa movement, where ADOS, or are they going to go to the Liberians and say, well, here's your cut of the money because you are African descendants of slaves living on the African continent? There is no rational way to limit black people's lineage to American plantation slavery and chattel slavery. From its inception, the chattel slave movement was a globalized movement. The European system of oppression, colonization, and slavery has always been global and has never respected the borders of Africans, the lineage, the tribal affiliations of Africans. It's always been a pan-African movement. Dr. Clark said oftentimes racists are better pan-Africanists than black people because racist white people understand all y'all the same. All you black people are just black people. They understand that better than the average so-called conscious black person. So, like I said, I can't help you to make sense of it because it's irrational to the core. So I really can't help you make sense of it.
And she's an educated scholar. But within like 10 minutes of this conversation, you've already like destroyed her rationale for this. So I don't understand how she could come to those conclusions and not immediately discard them.
Well, she's not educated. She's not educated because Dr. Bobby E. Wright said there's a difference between education and training. Education, fundamentally, a truly educated person can take the data, the information that they know, and translate it into a functional system of action. That's education. Someone, and a lot of people are impressed. I just had someone yesterday tell me about, oh, she has all this data, all these stats. And data and stats are great. I got data right now. I can look outside and say it's bright and sunny outside. That is a factual statement. But even though it's bright and sunny, I could conclude, well, since it's bright and sunny outside here in Chicago, I could put on some shorts and go to the beach. But it's also only 9 degrees. So, you have to be able to correlate data, you need to be able to interpret data, and then you need to be able to conceptualize functional response to that data. So just having a bunch of facts and data and stats are great. I'm not anti-data. People accuse me of being too heavily resting on data. But there's some additional steps. So I wouldn't call her educated because, like you said, she's highly irrational. So she has a lot of information, she has a lot of schooling, but she's not truly educated if we follow the definition of education given to us by Bobby E. Wright.
Well, thank you so much. I've been following for a minute. I patronize. Thank you so much for keeping me from the clutches of the Yvette Carnell.
Well, thank you for helping keeping me on the air, and thanks for calling in. I hope you continue to call in the future. I love your input, sis. Ça passe. Bye. All right. Okay, so let's scooch away. Because I actually have to jump to the topic. But there's one thing I want to talk about 21 Savage. It also frightened. Y'all just got me scared, man. Y'all keep me up at night. I'm going to have to, on the way home, I'm going to go buy me a night light and plug it in my bedroom. Because I'm scared. Y'all got me scared. I'm spooked out. Because y'all didn't allow 21 Savage to become the face of immigration, of the justice. Y'all allowed Meek Mill to become the face of criminal injustice. Y'all allowed Jay-Z to become the face of, financial responsibility and human rights. I mean, let me scooch away. I can't get into that because I'm running out of time and I'm running out of my mind. But I'm gonna have to talk about this. I'm gonna have to talk about race, caste, and class. That might be Monday's show. I had something else to talk about, but I don't know. I should just admit what I'm going to talk about. I need to talk about John Bolton, the most honest politician in America right now. I ain't saying he's right. I ain't saying he's good. I ain't saying I support him, but the truth is the truth. And just because the truth is nightmarish, just because the truth is insanely criminal, don't mean it's not the truth. And he's one of the first politicians to get on a TV screen and say, listen, yes, America, we're going to war for oil. And I didn't think, I'm like, damn. Wow, he finally won it. So John Bolton right now, if I had some reward, I'm going to make an award for people like John Bolton. I'm going to go find some dog feces in the street and put glitter on it and give him the award that he deserves. Because the honesty, the racist, imperialist, genocidal monster award, honesty. Because he's honest. He's the first and only. All these other politicians talking about they're going because Maduro is making the people suffer, and even liberal and progressive, so-called progressive politicians. But you can't be progressive and pro-war. Sorry, AOC and the rest of you new age Democrats, you can't be progressive and capitalist and progressive and Democrat. And somebody tell AOC you cannot be socialist and democrat and socialist and capitalist. She can. She said she believes that you can be both democratic, socialist, and capitalist. And I wanted to talk about where Trump said that America is a capitalist country and will always be a capitalist country. That's wrong. America was not always capitalist and will not always be capitalist. But again, I continue to digress. There's so much to talk about, and I'm gonna have to go because I have to talk about this other topic now. Because I got it. I had to block some people behind this. Today's show topic is rats, reactionaries, and revolution. And what brought this topic to the forward of my man, what got me thinking about it, was I made a post saying that I'm looking for it. And it's not so much that I think, because a lot of times I have things in my head that I think are just common sense. I'll say something that I think is not controversial. I'll say something that I think, yeah, this is obvious. I just want an easy win. Because a lot of things I write on my blog or on social media, a lot of things that I say on this show, I get backlash from it. And I don't care about, the racist people, the anonymous racists. I got to share some of that. It's been a while since I shared. Sometimes I get a lot of anonymous racist people in my inbox. And I got a few white people that pretend to be black people in my inbox. And they always tell on themselves. I even try to tell them how to talk like a real black. I should open a school for internet trolls who want to play black. And one thing you do, here's some freebies for you white people. Don't say as an African American or as a black guy or as an African woman, as a proud black woman. Black people don't talk like that. We just are. We don't announce our blackness through the room. It's just not, I just never heard an honest black person talk like that. And even if you're a real black person that says as an African American, then you're an Uncle Tom. And then when we say MF, we don't use the MFer. We use MFer, not MFer. Come on, there's little things, man. If you're going to hate on us, study us. At least know what you're hating. But I digress. But sometimes I say a lot of things and I get backlash for it. People come at my neck for it. So sometimes I want to say something just to huddle up with black folks, do a group hug and be like, yeah, So like on Malcolm X Day, like, yeah, love to Malcolm X. And everybody loved Malcolm X. Even the people who participated or support the organization that participated in his assassination claim to love him. So that's something, you post a Malcolm X picture or a Malcolm X quote on your page, everybody just huddles up. It's warmth. I don't want to always be on the outside. I can't come to the cookout because I ain't eating no fat back. Certain things. I can't come to the Super Bowl party because I ain't watching that mess. So I don't get to do everything with my people. So sometimes I just want to say something that's non-controversial, that I can huddle up with all black folks and everybody gives me the thumb up, a pat on the head, and a black power sign and a head nod. I like them things. I need them things. I'm human. And so I know a lot of what I say sometimes. I say something that I think, yeah, we're going to all huddle up. It's going to be all love. Wait till I post this. And I tap on that keyboard, tap, tap, enter. Yeah, right on, black people. And then black people start wigging out on me. Yeah, and like just, a couple of days ago was Bob Marley's birthday. Like, who don't love Bob Marley? Even white people, even rednecks. You go to the Klan meeting hall and they playing Stir It Up. Yeah, I love it. Woo! Even white people, honky tonk. Everybody loved Bob Marley. You got like ADOS now. Oh, Bob Marley came to America and got black dollars when we could have been listening to a black man sing songs. They don't even want non-African American performers coming to America being black. I never hear them, but I digress. All I'm saying is people are like, oh, he's mulatto, he ain't real black. And so it's even controversy. I thought that was an easy alley-oop, a layup. But I said something I thought was straightforward and clear, and that I would get a nice huddle hug from black folks. I said the no snitching code went from protecting those who fought for our people to protecting those who prey upon our people. Let me say it again, just how non-controversial I thought I was being. I said the no snitching code went from protecting those who fought for our people to protecting those who prey upon our people. I'm expecting digital fist bumps and high fives. I got dudes coming at my neck. First thing, some idiot come and say, oh, what do you want us to call the police? You want us to start calling the police on each other? So I was like, let me go back and read this statement again. The no snitching code went from protecting those who fought for our people to protecting those who prey upon our people. Where is police call police in that? How does that conclude to say, oh, we should start calling the police? Especially if you know my writings. I've written several articles about police. I just shared some insights about the Orangeburg massacre that occurred in 1968. I just shared an article talking about the massive police killings of passive protesters. If you go to my blog or my page, you'll find all the articles on police corruption, police brutality. Where have I ever said? And I asked the guy that was said, oh, you want us to call the police? I'm like, fine. In the more than a decade, I've been blogging and writing and talking online and tweeting and all that. Find anywhere. You could even go to my archives and go search my blog archives and do a keyword search. Keyword police, call, whatever. I'm like, just show me one place that I've said that. I've done anything, I've suggested anything that you're saying. And he was like, oh, no, you're a confidential informant. So I blocked him. Blocked the hell out of him. 360 behind the back block. Hung on the rim for a minute. But anyway, I thought this was a given. That black people understood. And what made me, why I'm thinking about snitching, I ain't in these streets. Even when I was in these streets, it was involuntarily in these streets. I never wanted to be in the streets. Even when I went and gave a talk, we were talking years ago when we had the Bloom Cooperative. And we had a community forum that was very well attended. And some guy got up and was like, what about the streets? I'm like, man, you just hear us up here. We up here talking about what we talking about. I don't know about, I can't tell you. If you in the streets, I can't tell you how to navigate the streets. When I was in the streets, all I could figure out is how to get up, out, and away from the streets. I didn't got, yeah. And that's another thing about, I see a lot of people that came up like me, right around me, talking about, I came up on in the projects. In gang territory, and when I was coming up, I grew up in the city that had the highest per capita homicide rate in the entire country. I remember I told that to my wife, and she was like, you from the woods, you from back country, you grew up riding quarter horses. And that's all true. And just like if you look it up right now, the FBI just released the stats, the most recent stats. And they look at the top homicide rates. It is not Chicago. Chicago's not in the top 10. It is not New York City. It's not Los Angeles, where all the gangster rappers are from. It's places like Tennessee, the Ozarks. That's where the real violence, the rednecks, the real guns. When I say per capita, that means homicides, robberies, rapes, break-ins per 1,000 people. I'm not discounting the crime and the suffering and the gang activity going on in Chicago. I see it, and I don't see it just empathetically. I look out my front window and I see it. I'm riding when I leave to, like, literally riding to the gym with my son early in the morning just before the sun come up, and we see dead bodies in the street. And I had to say to my son, look, there's a dead body ahead. Do you want to go around? He's like, no, let's keep going the same way. It's real. So this is not hypothetical for me. I understand. But you look at these places, Kansas City, Missouri, East St. Louis, go to places in Memphis, Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, black people are engaged and subjected to a carnage. And so I told my wife, where I was coming up, 89, 90, 91, 92, I grew up in a place that had the highest homicide rates in the entire country. And this is when America was much bloodier than it is now. And she went and looked it up and was like, damn, how'd you make it? So they kept my head down. Because even in my housing project, had hundreds of units in my housing project. you know. And when y'all think, but anyway, and just so I just went back to East Hills Village. Shout out to East Hills Village, everybody. And let me tell you something. A lot of the street cats that were in these streets, they really looked out for me. Shout out. I don't want to say names, you know, but I had some cats that literally saved my life on more than one occasion that was in these streets. And I never forget them. I still in contact with some of them. But like most housing projects, like most so-called violent, crime-ridden neighborhoods, the people engaged in the activity are only a small fraction. And another thing I said, black communities are not crime-ridden. They're justice deprived. It's a difference between being crime-ridden and justice deprived, which we can get into later. But when I said, what made me think about the no snitching code and how it went from protecting people who fought for us to protecting those who prey upon us was Tekashi 6ix9ine. Again, I'm ashamed just about how much I know about this. And it's not a lot, but I wish I could be like, to who? Six what? I wish that's how apart from this stuff I was, but I know. But Tekashi 6ix9ine started snitching on all these black men, starting with Shotty, the Six Trey Bloods of Brooklyn, New York. And I remember I went to school to downstate, SUNY downstate, Church Avenue. I went to SUNY downstate, and I used to get veggie patties on Church Avenue on lunch break. That's what I always think about, those veggie and gluten patties. They used to sell gluten patties. I bet you they don't sell gluten patties in New York no more. People just so scared of gluten. But I went to New York, and I thought to myself, man, I'm so happy to be in New York because this Crip and Blood stuff could never happen in New York. They used to have crews, the Deceps, the Lowlifes. They used to have these crews, and they were really about fashion and you know, but it wasn't set tripping, and it wasn't colors. And I'm like, man, this is good. I could wear a red bandana walking down the street, or a red-blue bandana, walk right down the middle of Eastern Parkway. Won't nobody look twice at me. And so when the Bloods and Crips, I remember Mos Def was talking about there's Bloods and Crips in New York, and I'm like, can't be. But anyway, the Six Trey Bloods, or the 9 Trey Bloods, whatever, he's pretty much rolling over on all these people. And I don't know why. See, I could understand why the New York City gangbangers would get Tekashi. He's a bankroll. But why would they integrate him into the criminal aspects? I had homies that were hustlers. And what you will find about a lot of these hustlers and grinders, a lot of them that are young, they still have elements of their childhood. They still want to be children. Even though they're selling drugs and moving weight and hustling weapons and engaged in all these criminal activities, many of them are children. Many of them are like Michael Jackson. They never had a childhood, so they have a lot of regressive tendencies or childish tendencies because they never really got to go through that. A lot of these street brothers, they didn't get to high school. They didn't get to go to prom and homecoming. They didn't get to play on the basketball team. They didn't get to hang out at the mall or the arcade. So a lot of these street cats, they like to return to that. If you watch them from a distance, you'll see when they're not engaged in criminal activities, in predatory activities, a lot of their behaviors are very childlike. A lot of these criminals, if you go, like I worked in a prison. I worked in Rikers Island for 3 years. And you see some of these murderers, some of these hardened criminals. And a lot of their outlook, a lot of their views on the world are very childish. They didn't really get good formal schooling. So academically, they're regressive or retarded, held back. Not to say that they didn't have intellectual potential, but it's untapped, uncultivated potential. So they're very, very, very childish. And you'll see a lot of the prisons, aside from the dehumanizing atrocities that the COs level upon black men in the prison system and black women, because I worked at the Rose M. Singer Center. I used to rotate. I used to do 1 week at the Rose M. Singer Center every month. I had to do a week there, and that was mandated for all the clinical staff to had to do a stint in the women's infirmary. So I worked in the Rose M. Singer Center, which was the only female prison on the large Rikers Island jail complex. But anyway, there's a lot of untapped, underdeveloped, repressed, and retarded potential. And I don't mean retarded I mean it in a clinical way, meaning, held back, purposely, deliberately. So, but, I say 30. It's Q4 Radio, AM 1680. You can find Q4 Radio on the TuneIn app or iTunes Radio. Just search QUE, the number 4. You can listen live from anywhere in the world at q4.org. If you're in the city of Chicago, you can listen at AM 1680 on your radio, if you still have that primitive technology. And you can also find all shows archived at diallokenyatta.com. And you can also find the full category of Bro Diallo Show dating back to our very first broadcast episode at Patreon. And if you become a Patreon supporter, not only are you open to certain gifts that I promise will have out to you sooner than later, you will also get access to our very first show all the way up to our most recent shows. You can click for the full show. But I'm also on Facebook. So please become a Patreon supporter, and you get other perks as a Patreon supporter. But back to the topic. Anyway, Tekashi 6ix9ine. What I didn't understand is they integrated him. I used to have friends for a myriad of reasons that went into street life, but they would make visits back to, because living in the project, I was still running cross country on the debate team, auditioning for the spring play. I was doing, playing basketball, hanging out at the mall, and my friends that had to go the other way, some voluntarily, some not so much. It was more of a coercion type thing. They didn't really have a choice. They would make returns back to their childhood, and they would hook up with their friends that was outside the life. They would call us civilians or neutrons, or school dudes. And they would come hang out with us. And they would just so much more relish and appreciate the opportunity to be children. And I'm talking dudes 16, 17, 15 years old. Would so much more appreciate and relish. We'd be out playing basketball. And when all the other dudes are like, let's go home, the dudes that was in the street was like, nah, let's get another game. They just want to be children. They don't want to be criminals. They don't want to be predatory. But they don't really have or see or have the capacity to take advantage of any alternatives or other options. So even with this Tekashi 6ix9ine dude, even if they were still a lot of street dudes hang out with their civilian, with their neutron friends to recapture that era, that lost aspect of their lives, of their childhood, of their youth. But I digress. They brought Tekashi 6ix9ine in, and they could put him on Front Street, let him front like he's a Treyway, that he's a 9 tray. I don't know if it's 9 tray or 6 tray. I don't know if it matters to y'all. I know maybe some people are like really want that accuracy. But these cats out on the street, why did they have to integrate him into the street stuff? I mean, I'd literally be hanging out with some dudes I grew up with. I've known since I was in the 2nd, 3rd grade. And when it came time to do the dirt, they left Diallo at home. They were like, yeah, where do you think you're going? Like, we got to make some moves. And I'm like, okay, we're making moves. And they were like, nah, not these kind of moves. It's different kind of moves. They would leave dudes like me at home. Even if I was out hanging with them and something came up, they would say, you better get on the bus and take your ass home. This ain't for you. At least that's the way it used to be. Where the dudes in the streets would look out from and keep a wall because they understood. If something went down and I was caught in the clink and them pigs, those fascists put that hot light on my forehead, I'm like, what? You know? They know. I'd probably tell it all. You know, well, suspect number 2 used to pee in the bed. Sex offender number 3 used to get extra Slurpees when he get a cup and finish. And I tell stuff that wasn't even relevant to the case. I wasn't no street dude. I wasn't no hardened dude. I hadn't been initiated, trained, or even developed any. I had no loyalty to no gangs. I'd never been loyal. I had no admiration of the gangs or the hierarchy. I didn't want no parts of that. I didn't respect. To me, now, if it was some revolutionary stuff, I'd hold my square because that's where my obligation, my love, my commitment, my beliefs, my identity was grounded. You know, I wanted to grow up and be Kwame Ture. I didn't want to grow up and be Pablo Escobar. I really thought I could be Malcolm X. I could be Carlos Cooks. That's who I fantasized about. So I was willing to make sacrifices, sacrifice my time, my talents, and even my life, because that to me is something where that's the life I wanted to cultivate. As far as these street legends, I could, they were jokes to me a lot of times. Very deadly, dangerous, aggressive jokes, but jokes. So I didn't care to try to protect the streets or the code. I did care to protect the movement. And people understood that. So there was that wall. They would even say, yo, this is a school dude. He ain't in it. He's a civilian. This is a street dude. So if you initiated into the street, then you were obligated to the street and you had to follow the street code. But if you weren't in the street, and if you get caught with some busters, with some suckers, with some neutrons, with some civilians doing dirt with some civilians, and they rat you out, it was understood. Why was you doing dirt with a dude who wasn't down, who wasn't street? Why would you even associate or doing dirt with somebody like that? Why would you pull a caper with a dude who ain't been initiated? You played yourself. So Tekashi 6ix9ine gets in, who's not a gangster. They promote this dude. They make money off of him. They could have made money off of Tekashi 6ix9ine and pimped him all over the world like Tariq does black women, and pimped him out. Made money off of him, even had him promote the gang without involving him or integrating him into the street stuff. That's how it used to be back in the 90s, back in the 70s. But I hear, young people say, the hierarchy has been blown up. The standards, the rule, the codes have been gone. But the one code that remains and that has expanded is the no snitch code. And I want to talk about why it has spilled over into civilian life, and there's been some of this slippage between consciousness and reactionary street culture and thuggism. But with this Tekashi 6ix9ine, Tekashi started snitching on everybody, which I didn't care, which I fully expect. He's singing like a bird. I was indifferent. I didn't care about his music. I didn't care about his plight. I didn't care about his associates. The one thing I do care about are the innocent victims who were afflicted by their criminal activity. But they are nameless and faceless. But what really started to annoy me about this is when all these other celebrities, one of the celebrities was Meek Mill. Remember the man who's the new face of criminal justice in America? Meek Mill came out talking about he's disappointed. He can't believe Tekashi snitched. And then Snoop Dogg and all these other black celebrities start talking about, yeah, he's snitching, as if they have street cred. All these wealthy black people who no longer have to deal with the homicides, their daughters don't have to walk the streets being harassed and potentially trafficked by gangbangers. Y'all think gangbangers just throw up signs and wear goofy clothes and get neck tattoos? They're engaged in highly predatory and disruptive activities in our communities. Gangsterism, and gangsters are Uncle Toms. They're sellouts. They're race traders. And we have people whom I've met, and I have a lot of admirable things to say about them. But one thing I have serious issue with them about is this revolutionary but gangster. And they rebrand these gangs as street organizations. And me, I gotta be fact-based. I gotta look at the true history. I've asked myself and I've examined, because I came up. There are brothers that I love, that I would have to say that I owe my life to, that are in these streets. So nothing I would love more than to try to develop the narrative that gangbangers and street cats and hood cats have this strong revolutionary potential. That if it all goes down, they fight for and with the people and not on the sides of the capitalists and the oppressors. But as I go back and look at history, there's too much recorded history to show that the gangs have little to no revolutionary potential. And that the criminal elements, when a people come under colonization, slavery, and oppression, the criminal elements side with the oppressor 100% of the time. And it ain't just black people. We don't have to hold our heads in shame. When you look at the mafia, when the Americans came to colonize Italy, They used the mafia to overthrow the leftists, the socialists, the communists, the progressive, the Republicans forces, the constitutional forces, the patriotic forces of Italy. The mafia cooperated with outside invading forces to prop up the outsiders. Right now in Venezuela, it is the gangs, the streets, that want to bring capitalism to Venezuela, that want to bring the free market to Venezuela so they can have their casinos, their sex trafficking. You all saw the Godfather movie, how the gangsters were carving up the land. The original gang, the original true gangs were the Knights of the Round Table. Go study the real history of the British Knights, the European knighthood. It was a gang initiation, and they had code, they had uniform, they had flags and colors. And they were said to go around protecting the people when they went around slaughtering, pillaging, and raping the people. And now we're trying to do that same thing. Our people with a certain code and an oath and colors and flags that they wave. And we want to pretend like they're a protective force when they're preying on and hollowing out the community. They're subverting what little trust and cohesion there's left in our community. They are aides, and they open up conduits for the oppressor to come into our community. They provide coverage for the regressive legislation imposed on our community. I ain't never shot a gun at nobody. I've never held a gun and pointed it in another person's direction. I never engaged in organized criminal or gang activity, but yeah, I committed some crimes. I used to steal Snickers, and I used to go to Sears Surplus, and if you're from East Hills Village, you know. Used to go to Sears Surplus and steal G.I. Joes. We had our little nickel and dime hustles. But my thing was, like my father told me, I would never snatch nobody's purse because I got a sister who walks these same streets. So if I'm going to engage in crime, I'm going to do it against the business, against the enterprise, against outsiders in the community. I'm not going to prey on my own people. So that was my code. I'll steal from a corporation. I'll steal from 7-Eleven. I never even stole. Again, this is only Kansas City people. I never stole nothing from Mama Dale's. I wouldn't even steal from Good to Go. Back when they were in business, a black-owned chain of gas stations and convenience stores. Never took nothing. If I didn't have money to pay, I'd go somewhere else. But 7-Eleven, Quick Trip, could get it all day. That was my code. So I ain't saying I'm innocent. But I ain't never done nothing worth having somebody compromise themselves. But those who did engage in criminal activities. Shoot, dang, look at it's 8:42. I need to hurry up and move through this. I'm sorry. I tried to cram too much into this time. But let me just get to my core points because I don't want to miss them. I'm sorry. I can't keep going down these rabbit holes. I mean, I'm overindulging myself. The rats, the reactionaries. What my main point is, and I can work my way from back. Black people who are engaged in predatory activity against the black community. And somebody said to me that I want to throw black people away. That is not my intent. I don't want to throw away Meek Mill. I don't want to throw away 21 Savage. I don't want to throw away the gangbangers. Hell, I don't want to throw away R. Kelly. Now somebody's going to take this line, and when I said I don't want to throw away R. Kelly, that they're going to just isolate that line. But let me tell you what I mean when I say I don't throw people away. I don't throw people away, but I also don't believe in stopping people from voluntarily jumping into the trash bin. So I didn't throw R. Kelly away. He threw us away or threw him damn self away. There's a difference between picking somebody up and throwing them away versus standing back and allowing them to jump in the trash bin on their own. 21 Savage, when he said, listen, I can literally make murder music. I can literally make music about not only killing my rivals, but killing the families, the loved ones, the grandmother, and the children of my rivals. I can make music explicitly promoting the use of drugs, the distribution of drugs, and the wanton, merciless murder of other black people. There is profit in that because white people are not only entertained by this type of music, they are somewhat sexually stimulated by massive black death. And I can become a millionaire by doing this. And he decided, he made his choice. That's to me. And let me tell you something about murder music. There's something we don't understand about propaganda and oppression. Hitler, when he was setting up, before he opened his first gas chamber, before he embarked on his mass slaughter, he used the art of Jews to justify the mass slaughter of Jews. He would set up entire exhibits of what he called degenerate art. And the degenerate art was, he was saying about how the Jews, they were sneaky people. They didn't come in with militaries. They would come in with subvert your culture. They wouldn't overthrow you by overthrowing your military. They will overthrow you by contaminating and subverting your culture. And then he would show all of this perverted and degenerate art, pornography, and say, look what the Jews do. Now, this was a lie. This was not quote unquote Jewish art. And also, there were plenty of German Aryan artists that made quote unquote degenerate art. But because Hitler was in power, power is the ability to define reality and have it act in the desired manner. So Hitler got to say that when you look at Aryan art, it's Roman art. It's triumphant. It's wholesome. It's family values in that art. But Jewish art is degenerate. It's warped. It's deformed and perverted. That was not the factual reality. There were many German Jews who made triumphant, patriotic art, and there were many Aryans who made degenerate, what could be called by some people's interpretation as degenerate art. But when you are in power, you are able to impose your reality on those who are out of power. And when you are out of power, you are vulnerable to the delusions of those in power. So the white people had the delusion, and wanted to define reality that, as Amos Wilson said, which is what a lot of the book I'm articulating, Amos Wilson said, black on black violence, the psychodynamics of black self-annihilations to service of white domination. These gangsters are not threats to our oppressors. They are assets and servants of our oppressors. Do you think breaking laws, black people breaking laws, and I'm going to get back to the propaganda and degenerate art, but black people breaking laws is not a threat to the system any more than us obeying laws is a threat. Look at Trump. Trump, every day he gets out of bed, he breaks constitutional laws, trade treaties, and international agreements. He is lawless. Lawlessness is no threat to this system because this system is not a system of laws. They got a lot of laws. They got whole libraries full of laws, but that ain't what this system is based on. Again, it's window dressing. Just like Tariq's Afrocentricity, it's candy coating over a very corrupt and degenerate core. But we'll get into that. I just wanted to say that. A lot of people think, yeah, brothers out here robbing banks and doing stuff. Another thing I say is sin is not what you do, but the spirit in which you do it. Now, you had revolutionaries that robbed banks, and you had reactionaries that robbed banks. You have freedom fighters that break the law, and you have integrationists that break the law. People who want to be equal to the oppressor, not to overthrow the oppressor. And we have to be specific in that. We have to be clear on who's who and what's what. But back to the propaganda thing and this 21 Savage and Meek Mill that are now sympathetic figures who are going to come and help us, and Meek Mill's going to reform the criminal code at the same time he's trying to uphold the degenerate regressive street code, the counter-revolutionary reactionary street code, no snitching. So when white people say we are criminals, we have a nation founded on genocide, and we wantonly and openly break our own laws. We write the laws and we break them before the ink dries. Before the ink was dried on the Constitution, they were violating the Constitution. And the Constitution only really applied to white men with land, a small minority. They were like, this is a democracy where only a minority of the people have any power or any say. But it's democracy because we have the power, and we could kill you. We could cut your tongue out if you go against what we say. Therefore, we're right, we're just, we're holy, we're men of God. We're the founding fathers. And so when white man works himself up to define reality as black men are oversexed, criminal, drug dealers who have no code, no ethics, and no principles, And now I have the power to make this false narrative a reality. And what power do I have? To go and find hand-picked black men to create music and art that articulate this position. And they've been doing that since the revolutionary struggle. Kwame Ture said that the Rosa Parks thing, sit down, and the civil rights movement and the evolution of the civil rights movement to the black power and black liberation struggle actually took white people by surprise. They're so racist. They so dehumanized us, they really didn't believe we had the capacity to rebel in that way. And even when they were in the midst of the black rebellion, they said it must be, like they're saying now, it must be Russian interlopers. They believed that Martin Luther King had gone to some Russian communist training school, and that black people fighting for freedom wasn't about black dignity, it was about a communist conspiracy to overthrow America, because black people rebelling is like the cows rebelling against McDonald's. They don't have the intellectual capacity. They're just slaves. They're descendants of slaves. They never built a civilization. They never had an armed or organized a rebellion. Hell, and even though we saw an armed successful rebellion in Haiti, we separate our niggas from the Haitians. Just like Ann Coulter told Tariq Nasheed. It all ties in. It's all freaking connected. So even when we rebelled, they couldn't believe that we were rebelling. But after a while, they had to admit to themselves, because that's when we started to get power. So when they lost power, they lost the ability to define reality. And so it was no longer the reality that blacks were skittish. They even had said that black people couldn't play pro sports because we didn't lack the coordination. We didn't have the intellectual ability to anticipate the moves. They said go look it up. Go read $40 Million Slave. They said that black men couldn't enlist in the military beyond peeling potatoes and loading ammunitions because we didn't have the heart to fight. All that broke down because black people started to organize, and our collective organizing was directly proportional to the level of power that we get. So we started to organize, and white people lost some power, and so that a lot of the delusions that white people imposed on us broke down. And we said, you ain't lynching us no more. You come into our community to lynch us, we're going to kill your ass. We're going to shoot back. Negroes with guns, deacons for self-defense, Black Liberation Army, and on down the line. Individual and collective resistance to white aggression. So white people are like, man, we lost some power. So now we need to redefine reality, and then we need to have that new definition of reality act in a desired manner. And that's when they came with the black exploitation. They saw black people that was freedom fighters, and the freedom fighters had an aesthetic. They wore afros and leather jackets, and they walked with a certain swagger, and they bucked up against, and they carried rifles, the Black Panthers and the Black Liberation Army. And then many of the offshoot and subgroups from Chicago to Kansas City with Pete O'Neill, Chicago with Chairman Fred Hampton, the East Coast with Assata Shakur. Black people acting and that broke out of the dominant paradigm. So they were like, we're going to take this exact same aesthetic of the afro, the leather jacket, the gun-toting, machine gun token, we're going to give you the Mac. We're going to say, well, the dudes with the afro and the leather jackets and the guns, the ladies with the defiant, with the dashiki and the nappy head and the cornrows, those are the pimps, the gangsters, the thugs. And they totally redefined reality. But they couldn't have successfully done that if there weren't black people willing to take 40 pounds of, 4 pieces of silver to sell us out. They did it with the cooperation of our own people. And some of our own people, our sellouts and traitors weren't just the people that drug Chairman Fred Hampton's drink. They wasn't just Milana Karinga and the other people who were cooperators and agent provocateurs and saboteurs. It was also in the media. It was also in the propaganda. So black people that voluntarily says, if I make degenerate, anti-black, anti-human, black music, there's more profit than making positive music. And go look it up. X-Clan, YZ, Lakim Shabazz, Poor Righteous Teachers, even hell De La Soul. Look at the biggest money makers. It's not the biggest money making rappers are not the most talented. Talent has no direct correlation to profits in this hip hop game. or even in the movies. There are magnificent movies showing the rider wave, Chameleon Street, Putney Swope, one of my favorite, Quiet Storm, another one of my favorites, The Spook Who Sat by the Door. But what are the classic movies? Everything from Dolomite to the Mac to even they had the Black Gestapo saying that conscious revolutionary black people were like Nazis. Go look at the Black Gestapo. I think it's free on YouTube. And which shows that if black militants took over, then they would be worse than the Nazis. So we need to create definite parameters. We don't need to be fearful of internal divisions because the internal divisions within our race exist amongst all people. You have different factions within the race. What we have to do is organize and fight hard enough that the Pan-African progressive liberation is sustainable. Revolutionary faction wins out over all these reactionary factions. And I don't care if it's street gangsterism or ADOS or DOAS. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it's won. And there's some other points I'm going to have to pick up on Monday. This is the Bro Diallo show, or maybe I'll do a side follow-up YouTube show or something, because there's a lot more I have to say. I didn't get through all my notes because time was not on my side. But I want to leave you with this. It don't matter where you come from. As long as you're a black man, you're an African. And I'll see y'all Monday morning, Q4 Radio, Bro Diallo show.